Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk about back to Kubernetes and talking about taints and tolerations. So Kubernetes has a very good feature, which is taints, which basically does the opposite of node affinity. Node affinity is where you can specify a pod has an affinity to a node. It's like adding node constraints in the Docker Swarm world. So you can basically attach, you can specify in the YAML on this pod spec, and it will be only deployed on a particular node. Taints are opposite of node affinity. What they do is they're basically allowing a node to repel a set of pods. So, for example, if my in my um, cluster, if I have three workers, let's say, and a manager, and I don't want, and this is basically if I want to have some kind of a data, let's say I want to run my database or backend pods only on a particular node, and that's, I would want that in case of maintenance, because I don't, because normally maintenance is when I do patching and stuff like that, I don't care, my worker nodes will be rebooted, they'll be patched, because pods will come back in another node, but I don't want the same for my backend pods. So the database pods, I want them to be evicted properly. I want to do some scripting to make sure that my database shuts down. My users are logged out. So if I want to do some kind of that stuff, and I want to say that, oh, you know what, I want to run all my backend pods on a particular node, or some kind of a high intense like GPU specific pods on a particular node, and that node could be like really with much more resources. So then I can use taint. So how I do is I can use a command called kubectl taint node. I give the name of the node and I can put the key and value. So in my case it can be anything. So in my case I'm saying node type is backend. That's my key, and the value is backend, and my policy is no schedule. That means no parts will be scheduled on this worker. As soon as a node is tainted, no pods will be scheduled. So I will show you an example that, but as soon as I taint a node, the pods running on it will be evicted and nothing will be running on that node. But what's the, now that doesn't solve my purpose. So then, but I want to run only specific pods onto that node. Then I add tolerations to the pod spec. In the YAML, in the deployment YAML, I can add something called as a toleration. And I have to give the same key and same value, because those pods have a toleration to that key and a value, and only those pods will get scheduled onto that worker node. Okay, so I have my cluster ready. I only have two worker nodes, so I'll taint worker 2. So when my master, so if I just show you, right, kubectl, if I do a describe on the node kube master, then, and you can see that up here you can see that there is a taint section, and it already has a taint. So the by default the master nodes are always have a taint of no, with the label of master and no schedule, which means that that's why it does, the workloads will not get deployed on the manager node or master. So in our case, we're going to create a taint, right? So let me see what is running around in my cluster. Get pods minus o wide, and I will just grab for running, because I don't know, something must be throwing it in. So we have a couple of items. Now I'm going to taint the worker node 2. So the command for that is taint, right? Nodes. My node name is cube worker 2, cube worker 2, and my key is node type. My value is you can say backend, and I'm going to do no s schedule. So I have, so I'm, okay, so let me see what is running in my cluster. I have everything running on worker 1. I cleaned up some deployment that was running on worker 2, because once I taint, after that nothing new gets on it, but whatever was running on it, it was still running. So I just cleaned it up to make sure that we start on a clean slate. So right now everything is running on worker 1. Now I have a deployment call It's just a simple deployment. It's called back deploy, nothing, right? It has two replicas and it's running an nginx. It'll run nginx pod. So I will do apply minus f. Now this doesn't have tolerations. So these pods, when they come up, they should also come up on worker one. So I do back deploy, and now if I do get pods minus or running, now they're coming up. Back deploy and everyone, they're all coming up in the worker one, as you see, because they did not go to worker two because I didn't have the tolerations. So now I have another set of a YAML which is called taint, nginx taint. Let me show you. So it's called nginx taint. What this running is, it's going to deploy three replicas. This will be, but this has tolerations. If you see at the bottom, it has tolerations with node type equals backend. So let me deploy that. And let me check the status now. So as you can see, the nginx taint, this one, it started coming up on worker 2. So this is an example of the, if you want to specifically run pods on a particular node, but you don't want but you know want the other like just specific, just identifying a node for running backend servers. So the tolerations and this is much better than using node affinity, because we can apply multiple tolerations to a particular nodes, right? So it can have, so two different set of parts, two different set of deployments with those, tolerations can also be applied, and they will all be, only those specific set will be running on that node. So, and now to clean up, I will just remove the tolerate taints. So that's as simple as we applied nodes cube worker 2, and then I have to give the key, which is node type equal to, I have to give the value again, which was backend, and I have to give the no schedule again with a dash in front. So this will be untainted. So now the node will be untainted. And now if I deploy anything else, it will be easily, so it will also get deployed to the worker because it doesn't have the taint anymore.